The Belfast Blitz was one of the forgotten atrocities of the Second World War. Outside of London, it was the largest single loss of life in any night raid by the Nazis on the British Isles. The attacks consisted of 4 raids in April and May of 1941. The Luftwaffe had previously made a reconnaissance flight on the 30th of November 1940. The targets in Belfast were obvious and high value. Harland and Wolff shipbuilders and Short Brothers aircraft factory were of critical importance to the war effort, while Mackey's engineering supplied weapons and ammunition. Belfast Power Station and waterworks were vital to the running of these installations. Unfortunately for the people of Belfast, the Nazis planned to carpet bomb the area between York Street and the Antrim Road encompassing these installations, a densely populated part of the city. The government of Northern Ireland had neither will nor competence to prepare for the threat. Many of the Unionist leaders of the time had little regard for the lower classes, Unionist or Nationalist. They also believed that Belfast was out of the range of the Luftwaffe. Yet the Nazis had already successfully bombed shipyards in the Clyde, in the west of Scotland. After these raids, Security Minister J.C. McDermott wrote to the Prime Minister of Northern Ireland, John Andrews, warning that Belfast was certain to be attacked during the next full moon. He was ignored. Lord Haw Haw even promised in a broadcast from Berlin that the Nazis would deliver Easter eggs for Belfast. Such was the complacency that the government only built a limited number of air raid shelters. As a result, Belfast, the city with the highest population density in the United Kingdom, had the lowest number of air raid shelters. The city had no searchlights, no night fighters, and only 22 anti-aircraft guns, 16 of them heavy. The Nazis concluded that Belfast was a soft target, far too inviting to resist. There's lots more to come in this video, but please consider subscribing. Thank you. The first raid came overnight on the 7th to 8th of April and was a small one to test the city's defences. The second raid came on Easter Tuesday, 15th of April, 1941. 200 bombers unloaded on Belfast. At least 900 people were killed and 1,500 injured. Almost all were civilians, including children, few of whom had been evacuated. Half the houses in the city were damaged, and 100,000 people were homeless. The third raid came on the 4th to 5th of April, and though less intense, 140 people were killed by an incendiary. The fourth and final raid came the following night, but with much of the city flattened, there was little in the way of targets left. The devastation was shocking. Bombing was indiscriminate. Churches, schools, and hospitals were not spared. Burke Street, in the New Lodge area, was wiped off the map, all 20 houses levelled. Most casualties were killed by falling masonry or in the streets as they tried to escape bombed-out houses. Morgues were overwhelmed, and the city was forced to use public swimming pools temporarily, then mass graves. During the worst of the bombing, McDermott asked Andrews for permission to request help from the Irish Free State, as the Republic of Ireland was then known. 13 fire engines and 71 firefighters came north from Dundalk, Drogheda, Dublin and Dunleary. In each station, volunteers only were asked for, yet every man volunteered. They stayed for 3 days until relieved by firefighters from Scotland. By the end of the raids, 200,000 people had fled Belfast, taking refuge with friends or strangers, with nothing other than the clothes they stood in. Lord Haw Haw gloated from Berlin, "The Fuhrer will give you time to bury your dead before the next attack." However, Eamon de Valera, the Taoiseach or Prime Minister of the Free State, which was neutral in World War II, protested to Berlin at the tactics and the civilian loss of life. The Nazis, ever paranoid about the US entering the war, feared that the Irish community there may bring pressure on the US government to become involved. There were no more raids, and Lord Haw Haw never mentioned Belfast again. So why did this great tragedy fade into history without recognition or commemoration? The answer lay in the terribly divided political situation of Northern Ireland. For some, commemoration of sacrifice or service in world wars is contentious, without similar commemoration of sacrifice in the pursuit of Irish unity. Politics aside, the civilians of Belfast all suffered together, Protestant and Catholic, Unionist and Nationalist, in the face of a barbaric enemy who threatened civilization itself. In 2016, plaques were unveiled at the sites of the greatest loss of life, and in 2019, a narrow vote on Belfast City Council held that a permanent memorial to the 1,000 and more civilians of all backgrounds who died would finally be erected. Just in time for the 80th anniversary of Belfast's most tragic few nights.